Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Drew's co-host, entertainment writer Jim Hill, and he and I are recording the show on Friday, August 30th, 2019. 3-day Labor Day weekend is just about to get underway, and Drew and I are trying to knock out a quick show before that gets started. So, going to touch on the news and wrap up our D23 Expo coverage. So, because, here's the irony, folks. I just got back from running errands. Drew's got to go out and do errands. What sort of errands are we doing, Drew?
We are going to the grocery store. I know that's very exciting for you. Katie's getting her nails done, so I'm going to sit there and try to read The Goldfinch a little bit and try to finish the book before I have to see the movie next week. So
this is again, we're popping the hood of how a professional in entertainment does his job, because that's, you do actually have to be able to say, okay, how did it compare to the book versus the film? So this is Drew doing his homework.
I'm trying to do it. Yeah, I need to finish the Rafferty book too, obviously.
Well, there's that.
Yes.
Okay, well, we were talking about Labor Day, 3-day holiday, and, speaking of holidays, I have to say one of the animated features that I'm most looking forward to this year is Klaus, the feature directorial debut of Sergio Pablos, who... for me, I think the thing I loved that he did Dr. Doppler for Treasure Planet. Mm-hmm. And, I love that this guy is getting his own film. So
didn't he come up with the idea that became Despicable Me as well? Isn't he kind of like this idea guy?
Very, very much so. And again, that's why it's so great that out of all the things that Netflix could have chosen for its first animated feature, they settled on this one. And I love this story. I love the idea of the young, lowly Scandinavian postman called Jesper, who gets a chance to make his mark when he's tasked to bring the postal system to this remote village in the cold north. And while he's there, he meets this mysterious white-bearded toy maker called Klaus.
Who do we think that is?
I'm leaning toward Unabomber, but I could be wrong, Drew.
What a twist.
What a twist. There we go. Anyway, so like I said, this is the first Netflix animated feature. And, just in the past week, we've seen the whole Irishman situation, right? Where, Netflix wrestled with the movie theaters in regard to how much time between, a theatrical presentation versus when it becomes available on Netflix. And that was 3.5 weeks.
I think Scorsese really wanted a wider release as well. Mm-hmm. And then I think the thing that really kind of killed the deal was that AMC was just not willing to play ball at all. And I mean, did you see how long the movie is going to be? That also probably
3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And, I think, what was it? Hollywood Elsewhere. I'm forgetting Jeff.
Oh, Jeff Wells. Yeah.
Jeff Wells.
God.
He made an interesting comparison between, there are cinema fans who are saying, 3.5 hours, oh my God, what's that going to do to my bladder and my butt? And then there are the film fans where it's like, we're getting another Scorsese film and a 3.5 hour one. And isn't it amazing that 50 some odd years into his career, he's able to do something like that? And I thought that was interesting. That was an interesting observation, because I'm sad to say, I'm old enough that, my immediate thought was my butt and my bladder. So,
I'm in the camp of just, I'm ready for it. I say, bring it on, baby. Okay. Bring it on. Yeah.
Well, anyway, circling back to Klaus, and again, this whole notion of, Netflix wants to play fair. So Klaus is going to be out in theaters in the U.S. and UK starting on November 8th. But then its Netflix debut is literally 1 week later on the 15th.
Right. And that's what we call a Academy Award obligation, that it has to play in a Los Angeles-based theater exclusively for 1 week.
Is it just 1 week?
Yeah, it's just 1 week, yeah.
Okay, all right. Did that change? Because I heard it used to be 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Oh, well, I mean, maybe it'll still be in some theaters after the 15th. But yeah, I mean, they're going for that best animated feature Oscar. So whatever it is, they've got to do it.
Well, at the very least, because it's Sergio, it's going to have amazing design. So,
Yes.
cannot wait. Now, here's the thing, though, that they're not saying how extensive the theatrical release will be. I mean, obviously, as you said, Academy Award consideration, so it's definitely New York, definitely LA, but beyond that, it's how much wider. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't see it playing very wide. But on the 15th, when Klaus is leaving theaters, I Lost My Body will be in theaters. So this is the French film that won a special grand prize at the Cannes Critic Week in May, and it's about a severed hand's quest to return to its body. And it's this sensation that has been like beloved on the festival circuit. So I'm so excited to finally see it. And so that'll be in U.S. theaters on November 15th. And it will be on Netflix on November 29th.
Wow.
So we'll have a lot to watch this fall. And I'm sure we'll be talking about both of these movies a lot. So
that will be. Okay. Pivoting now back to the D23 Expo. And on last week's show, we primarily talked about the films that were coming from Walt Disney Animation Studios, Pixar Animation Studios, and to a lesser extent, Blue Sky. But that wasn't the only animation news that came out of the Anaheim Convention Center. We had The Simpsons making their big, Disney debut, so to speak. I cannot wrap my head around the fact that, here we are, season 30, 662 episodes. And all of them, every single one of them, is available on Disney Plus starting on November 12th. Did anything come out of that presentation that surprised you, Drew?
Well, I had heard that they were going to make the announcement of a sequel movie. And while they brought it up, I think that equally interesting is the fact that they said that there are possibilities of doing either a limited series or some kind of spin-off based on one or more of the characters in the show, which is really interesting, considering how it's been the core characters for the entire run of the series. That there was even that hilarious episode, the Simpsons spin-off showcase spectacular. Do you remember that episode where?
Oh God, yes. Where
they gave Cletus a show, and everybody else.
What, didn't Wiggums end up like a Magnum PI down at Key West? Or something like
yes.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, well, though what was interesting for me is they did get a question during this presentation about Apu, which, again, face it, on the heels of, the documentary, The Problem with Apu, and especially with Disney taking over as the sort of the new Uber master of Fox, it was kind of the assumption that they'd write him out of the show or he'd fade into the background. And was it Groening or Al Jean who said this? No, we love Apu. He's going to stay part of the show.
Wow, I didn't hear that, but that's really interesting. Well, how do you feel about the whole Apu controversy?
But face it, inside of 30 years, when this character was first introduced in the show, it was satire. I mean, face it, because nobody expected The Simpsons to run more than a year or so. So, here's the Quickie Mart with its cliched, Indian owner and operator, but over time, Apu genuinely deepened as a character. There was the episode where he got fired from the Quickie Mart and went to live with The Simpsons, and that was one of the first episodes where they did an elaborate musical number. Who wants the Quickie Mart? And he got married, he had his kids, and I get how, in fact, that's the interesting thing about The Problem with Apu documentary, where for young, American Indian kids making their way through the school systems where Apu became a slur. I get that. I get how that could be offensive, but, in a weird sort of way, Apu opened a lot of doors, for a lot of folks. And I don't know. I guess you have to you have to accept that times change and sensibilities change. I mean, look, what was it? 40 or 50 years ago, there was actually a, Amos and Andy television series, and it's like, okay, times change. That's not necessarily what we should think of humor now. And so it's sort of like, you have to respect that. And,
it's a really interesting subject. I haven't seen the documentary. I don't know where it played on like True TV or something.
It did.
Yeah. But, obviously representation matters in a big way and positive representation particularly. And, I think that, had things been as sort of enlightened now as they were 30 some odd, when did The Simpsons premiere? 32 years ago, whatever. So it's been a long time, but I agree that you can't short shrift how much the creators and Hank Azaria have given that character depth and, an inner life and all of these things that they could have easily not. So, it's a very interesting subject.
But at the same time, remember, you look at something like Breakfast at Tiffany's, this film that...
Oh, God.
Well, but that's it exactly. Think about it. This was a smash hit, when it was released, a much beloved, George Peppard, Audrey Hepburn film. And in the middle of this, you have Mickey Rooney as the upstairs Japanese neighbor with the buck teeth and the glasses and that was perfectly acceptable to laugh at that in the 60s. And now, I mean, you just cringe.
Yeah, so, even I was rewatching all of John Hughes' movies and the long Duck Dong character from 16 Candles. I had forgotten that every time they even mention him, somebody sets off a gong.
No,
it's like, oh my God.
That's it exactly. I mean, that's the thing. When you initially saw this, in context, it was funny, but, there's you take the 30,000-foot view, maybe it's, we have to change with the times. And I guess if we do, again, I will be, I will be sad to see Apu go, if only because of, did you ever see the episode where he had worked for 72 hours straight? And they showed him on the the security camera in the Quickie Mart because he was hallucinating. He was a hummingbird.
Yes. Was that the same episode where James Woods was studying to be a Quickie Mart?
I believe so. And that's the thing. I will mourn the jokes, but on the other hand, out of respect, it's like, okay, we think we got to change.
Some things are passe for a reason. And,
this is true. This is true. On the other hand, there are other things that are hugely successful and popular for a reason, and among those was Amphibia this year.
How are you feeling about Amphibia?
The thing is, while Alice was out here visiting, we binged a bunch of them, and I got to tell you that cumulatively, both from a narrative point of view, I don't know if you saw the last episode where you finally got to see, one of her friends who'd also been, sucked into sort of the Pandora box and how she popped up in the world. They did, the writing got better over the season. I mean, as it always does with an animated series. People, get a better handle on characters, running gags, emerge. I thought it ended really strongly, but what kind of intrigues me is, based on what they were saying at the D23 Expo this year, that the show is about to reinvent itself as kind of a road picture, isn't it? Or
yeah, that's what I understand. And did you see that Kermit was hosting that panel? And at one point, it was really cute because he got sucked into the, what is it called, the Calamity Box or whatever it is.
Oh no!
Which explained why he wasn't there, and then he popped up elsewhere in the panel, which was really cute.
Oh.
But
I missed that. I missed that.
Frogs know frogs, and he was definitely there repping Amphibia, which was really cute.
So what was kind of interesting, at least for me, and I wonder from a PR point of view how the folks who did Amphibia, and also Big City Greens was part of that panel, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
so that's coming back too.
Yeah, but think about it. The big news that came out of that panel wasn't necessarily about Amphibia or Big City Greens. It's that Lawrence Fishburne walked on stage and, with Kermit's help, announced that there's a new Marvel animated series coming.
Yeah, that's right.
Lunar Girl and
Moon Girl and the Devil Dinosaur,
which based on a very popular, relatively new line of comics for Marvel. And I don't know if you saw the design. What'd you think?
I thought it looked really good. I mean, it's sort of based on a classic character that they've updated in the last few years, and it's really interesting that they're kind of like, at the same time at D23 they were showing off the first footage from What If at the big Disney Plus panel on Friday, which I thought looked really incredible. It's got this kind of like cell shaded look, almost sort of like Resistance, and they have all the actors' likenesses. So the big moment was that you saw the kind of pod that Captain America was incubated in, and the pod opens up, and it's Peggy Carter in the pod, and she's the one that gets the superpowers, and so it was really cool to see that. But yeah, there was a lot of sort of Marvel animation news, which was cool.
Well, and I guess, don't get me wrong, really, really looking forward to Marvel's What If. And by the way, thank you again for sharing the code. We were all set up. So,
oh, great. You're a charter member.
I'm a charter member. I don't know if I get my Founders Circle pin, but, I'm a charter member. But I guess the one thing, again, it's sort of circling back to the Lawrence Fishburne overshadowed thing, the very fact that you have the actors who appeared in all those Marvel Cinematic Universe movies voicing these characters as well. I just hope it's not going to be a situation where it's the tail wagging the dog, where you get, oh my God, Chris Evans is back doing Captain America. Not that this is a really cool story,
right.
Don't get me wrong. It's great that Haley Atwell is coming back to play Agent Carter, or in this case, she's Captain Britain, or...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's Captain Britain, yeah.
So, again, I'm just going to be intrigued to see how that works. More to the point, because you, at least to my knowledge, were among the first to point this out, the very fact that it's not a question of, oh boy, I get to binge all of the what ifs, because that's not how Disney Plus is going to work, right? We're going to...
Right, yeah, they're going to be weekly series, which I was just talking to our good friend and mortal enemy Dan Z on his podcast about this, which is great because it's going to sort of like, I think, keep kind of the cultural conversation on the same page, because there's nothing like, waking up on a Friday and already having some article written about the last episode of Stranger Things or whatever, whatever it is.
That's true.
So we're going to be on the same page. We're going to, get to dissect things week by week. I think it's a great approach, and I'm really looking forward to it. And you and I will be able to recap these shows week by week as well for everybody listening.
Well, that's something to look forward to come November. Now, something to look forward to starting this coming week. In fact, I think the day that this podcast gets posted, Drew, is that we have the last few episodes of season 2 of DuckTales starting up.
Finally.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that if I'm reading this correctly, they're all coming out, again, sort of over a 10-day period with the, let's see, season finale?
Season finale is on the 12th.
Yeah, September 12th. But the weird thing is, there is no suspense, because what was it, even before the second season debuted, we got that confirmation that there was season 3 of DuckTales had already been greenlit. It was in production. And we had that poster come out of Comic-Con. And for me, what was intriguing about that poster was looking at that and how it made it look like season 3 of DuckTales was basically going to be a Valentine to the Disney afternoon, that syndicated block from the 90s. And what was it?
Hashtag justice for Marsupilami, Jim. I just want to say that. So
do you, well, if we're doing that, what was his name?
Bonkers.
Bonkers. God, if we're pushing for Marsupilami to do a cameo,
I think Bonkers should be there too. I agree. Listen, Jim, you're preaching to the choir.
Okay.
Let me tell you.
Okay. Well, but that's the interesting thing to me, because again, they handed us that poster at Comic-Con, and we saw here's Kit Cloudkicker and Molly from Tailspin, and we got Goslin Mallard and Taurus Bulba from Darkwing Duck, and God help us, even those weirdly redesigned Rhinoki and Butterbear from the Wuzzles.
Right.
But the one that really intrigued me was the Daisy Duck that who was supposed to be reprising the version of this character that was done for Quack Pack.
Oh, is that what the angle is?
That's my understanding, that we get to see Daisy in her reporter job, working for the there in Duckburg as a television reporter. And do you have fond memories of Quack Pack? True.
No, I mean, what I remember, and I recently looked it up because I was doing a listing of the Disney afternoon shows, and some of them I had completely forgotten about. Do you think we're going to see Schnookums and Meat on this?
It's going to be a cold day in Hoth, before the Schnookums and Meat show comes back. But
isn't that funny?
Tell you what, folks, get back from this commercial break. We're going to do a deep dive on Quack Pack.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
And we're back. Okay, so
tell me this, Jim. Was it based on the success of Goof Troop that Quack Pack was implemented?
Now you see, you've nailed it in one.
Okay.
In a weird sort of way, obviously, again, the show dates back to the original DuckTales, which debuted in syndication September of '87. But ran 4 seasons, and then remember, it got. It's a theatrical release. It got the DuckTales, the movie, Treasure of the Lost Lamp, which came out in August of 1990. So, as you said, Here Comes Goof Troop. That debuts, starts on the Disney Channel April of 92. In fact, this is where, the Disney afternoon stuff got interesting, because they do things like produce 65 episodes for syndication, but then 13 episodes that would run only on ABC. So,
right.
So
they were doing that with a lot of those shows, right?
They were. And in fact, what's especially interesting about this is before Disney has bought ABC Cap Cities. That deal doesn't even happen till 95. So they're cutting a deal with ABC to run their Disney product on Saturday morning, but again, with the idea of building interest in the show the version of the show that then runs Monday through Friday. But so we get 2 seasons of Goof Troop, a total of 78 episodes, and again, not so much because Treasure of the Lost Lamp made a lot of money when it was released to theaters in 1990, but the VHS came out in March of 1991 and did buku bucks. That was where we got a Goofy movie from. It's like, well, look, we'd love another Treasure of the Lost Lamp, so why don't you guys go off and make this movie? And where it got interesting was that, and again, this is Kevin Lima's debut as a feature director, isn't it? He's a co-director on.
Yeah.
And Kevin was the guy who came up with the idea that, look, if we want to make Max interesting, let's age him up. The only way there's a real conflict is if, he's a teenage boy who wants to get away from his dad. And the weird thing is when the film comes out in April of 1995, it actually does double the business that Treasure of the Lost Lamp did. And by the time it gets to VHS, it's out on VHS by September of that year. I mean, it's a smash hit. So the folks at Disney Television Animation are sort of looking at that and going, wow, okay, so, audiences really respond to a teenage character. And so they were looking at the fact that, really, when you look at DuckTales, Donald is only in, what is it, like the first episode or two?
Right.
And then, just pretty much disappears into the background. So here's a character they really haven't exploited, coupled with that, here we have the nephews, which we could age up just like we did Max in a Goofy movie. So they greenlight in fact, it's in the exact same year, Drew. It's 1995. They greenlight this project. And at that point, though, it's called Duck Days, as in D-A-Z-E. And again, you have the premise of the show is that Daisy Duck is a reporter working for a local TV news magazine in Duckburg that's called What in the World? Donald's her longtime boyfriend. He's also, her cameraman who goes off on assignments with her. And Donald's nephews, who are now teenagers, help out Daisy and Donald, as they travel the globe covering assignments. But at the same time, they're also complicating their lives with their kooky, crazy antics, because that's what teenage boys do.
Especially in the 90s.
Well, of course.
That's all they did, really.
But here's the thing. Okay, so, remember, back in the original DuckTales, when that was in production from 1986 to 1990, the late, great Russi Taylor not only voiced all three of Donald's nephews, she also did Webigail. But here's Quack Pack. Oh, by the way, getting back to the Goof Troop thing, evidently there was a marketing executive at Disney who eventually said, look, we want people, when they watch the show, to think of Goof Troop. And we need a name that's more reminiscent of Goof Troop. So Duck Days got dropped in favor of Quack Pack, which I wish somebody had told any money about, because if you go to YouTube now and watch the opening titles for Quack Pack, here he is singing about Duck Days, because, again, that's how late they made the call. So, all right. So anyway, we're back to Quack Pack, and back to recasting. Russi's not going to work as the voice of the boys anymore because they have to be individuals. They have to be able to differentiate. But interesting, they still kept three women. So we got Jeannie Elias. She voiced Huey. He's the one in the red shirt. The teenage version of Huey is reimagined as the leader of the trio. He's the smooth talker and schemer. Elizabeth Daly voices Louie, one in the green shirt. He's the one who likes comic books and sports. He's a big animal rights advocate and a little eccentric. And finally, Dewey, one of the blue shirt. He's voiced by Pamela Adlon, and he's the one.
She's so great.
Yeah, and I'm blanking. What has she done voices for?
Well, she did voices for King of the Hill and Recess, and she was on Californication for that entire show, and Louie, obviously, and then currently has Better Things on FX right now, which she's getting a lot of praise for, and bringing this back to animation, she was the mother in the Bumblebee movie from last year.
There we go.
Which was so good.
There we go. Okay.
So there you go.
Anyway, for Quack Pack, Dewey is imagined as he's the one with computers and technology, and he's a big practical joker. So, by the way, again, you'll love this, Drew. For the backstory of that show, the full names of Donald's nephews are Hubert, Deuteronomy, and Louis. So I just love that it's Deuteronomy.
Wasn't this also they were going to have them interacting with human characters? Was that still in the show? I remember that being one of the, again, getting back to Bonkers. Do you remember that there were actual human characters alongside the animated characters?
Well, the weird thing is that was supposed to become a big element of season 2 of the show. But here's the thing. Quack Pack was one and done. One season, and done. And though, it's long been rumored that it was because the audience really didn't warm to the aged-up nephews, but it's a little more complicated than that. I mean, by the fall of 1996, the Disney afternoon was facing increasing competition for viewers. I mean, Batman the Animated Series debuted back in September of 92. By September of 96, the Kids WB is now showing an hour-long segment that's paired Batman the Animated Series with Superman the Animated Series for the new Superman or Batman Superman Adventures. And that took eyeballs away from the Disney afternoon. Over at Fox Kids Network, but starting in August of 1993, they began running the Mighty Morphing Power Rangers. And, face it, that show became a full-on cultural phenomenon. Just blotted out the sun in children's entertainment. And facing this sort of serious competition, Disney had no choice but to reinvent its 2-hour-long syndicated, block of animation. In fact, starting in the 1997-1998 season, they actually cut the block back to just 90 minutes. They also partnered with Kellogg, who insisted that the show had to skew older, that they were, looking for the eyeballs that were watching Batman, that they were watching Superman, they were going Marty Morphin. So they retooled the show so it's built around Disney's Hercules and Doug and the Mighty Ducks. And that meant there was no spot for the Quack Pack. So, they were cut. Though the interesting thing is the teenage version of Huey, Dewey, and Louie survive. In fact, if you watch House of Mouse, which launches in January of 2001, you've got Huey, Dewey, and Louie still with their longish teenage hair as the house band at the House of Mouse. They would refer to them with pseudo joke, bands of the period names. So they were the Quack Street Boys or the Splashing Pumpkins or, that sort of thing. But at the same time, we also saw, Disney wasn't necessarily locked in to just one version of Huey, Dewey, and Louie. In fact, the home premiere Twice Upon a Time, right? The CG.
Of course.
Yeah.
That was some. There's some rough stuff in there.
There's definitely some rough stuff. But the segment Christmas Impossible, that's Russi once again voicing the nephews. And in fact, I want to say this is one of the very last times that Alan Young voices Scrooge McDuck on that show.
Wow.
Anyway, okay, we jump ahead 13 years, we get the DuckTales reboot, and now we have Danny Putty, Ben Schwartz, and Bobby Monahan voicing Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And, I have to admit, they are among my favorite elements of this show. They are just so well written and such distinct personalities. Which, if you think back to DuckTales, they really, one was blue, one was red, one was green. Whereas here, I mean, I love the fact that, for example, Louie, I love how they refer to him as the evil triplet.
Right.
I mean, it's just good stuff. But well, anyway, folks, if you have enjoyed the DuckTales reboot so far, like I said, we've got about 5 episodes dropping, over the next week or so. And again, ending with that hour-long finale, which, has, what is it, Invasion from the Moon?
It's called Moon Invasion, I think. Hold on. I was just setting up my DVR to tape all of them before the show.
Yeah.
So, and you know what else is on next week, Jim? Yes, it's called Moon Invasion! ! Mm-hmm. The Steven Universe movie.
That's right. I meant to bring that up as well. That's all right. This is the problem.
That's Monday.
Monday. See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
This show goes live on Tuesday, folks. You missed it. But
we'll talk about it next week.
We'll talk about it next week. So.
And we haven't talked about Invader Zim yet either, so we'll have to do that.
Oh my God, we just caught that, and folks, we will go in depth on our next episode. But that is worth it alone. Have you seen it yet, Drew? Or?
I haven't watched it yet. I'm going to watch it this weekend.
Okay.
This is what I'm doing with my time off. Watching Invader Zim.
He's laboring on Labor Day for you folks,
Yes,
all right?
yes.
Getting caught up on all this animation.
Yeah.
It's worth it alone. There's a moment where basically, in fact, it's kind of borrowing a page from the Marvel Universe. You're exposed to the multiverse, and there's this amazing montage where they just cut from animation style to puppetry to, it's just this tour de force.
Oh, I love that.
And wonderfully, all right, look, I'm starting to review it. We'll save that for the next show.
We'll save it for next time.
Okay.
But I just want to say that more people have come up to us, both in person and on Twitter, and said that because of us talking about DuckTales, they finally have watched it and love it. So I feel like we are still doing, God's work by evangelizing the new DuckTales like we do.
Well, and let's not forget that, among your other godly duties is getting people to pivot back to the Mission Impossible movies and realizing the hard work and the artistry and the technical skill that have gone into those.
Yeah, well, you're going to love, we're doing a whole month of visual effects artists that have worked on the movies.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think I talked to you about this last time, and we talked to a guy whose first movie out of CalArts when he was drafted by ILM was the first Mission Impossible. And then this last week, we talked to a guy named Todd Vaziri, who's great on Twitter. He does these amazing breakdowns of scenes and stuff. And he worked on 3 and 4, Mission Impossible 3 and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. He also worked on these little Star Wars movies. I don't know if you've heard of any of them, but he told me actually right before we started that he had spent 8 months working on Rise of the Resistance stuff. So
okay, so we'll have to circle back, or you and Mr. Z will have to circle back on talking to in January thereabouts.
Yeah.
When we're
so
finally
pretty
allowed
cool
to talk about this stuff. But
yeah, isn't that neat?
Okay, so that starts this month, September?
That'll be, I think, September. We'll start these visual effects months. But we've got a lot of great guests as always. So definitely tune in every week for Light the Fuse.
Oh, cannot wait. Okay, my side of the fence, the usual crud folks. Disney Dish with Len Testa, Marvelous Disney with the amazing Aaron Adams. We talked about Dan Z. He and I do a show together looking at Lucasfilm. Dustin Fuse and I do our Universal Joint podcast about the Universal theme parks. And Michelle Valladolid and I are working on a post D23 Expo episode right now about all the merch there. So,
brief update, Jim. I found that Duke Kaboom, so I don't need anyone to get it for me. We can call off the search. Best part about it, too, when I ordered it from the website, I got a $10 coupon. So, boom, instantly. It was $10 cheaper, so I will finally have my movie authentic version of Duke Kaboom coming, and maybe I'll review it on the show whenever it comes.
But it literally showed up on the Target site, or?
Yeah, I got an alert on the app like a day after we record, and I was so worried because I was like, "Oh my God, someone has found this for me already." But I found it; it's coming. So yeah, I wanted to update everyone. I know everyone was really staying up late thinking about that.
Well, yes, call off the hounds, folks. Duke is the okay.
Yes.
Well, all right. Well, again, Drew has a very busy weekend of animation watching ahead of him. In fact, as soon as we wrap here, Alice and I are about to get started on the new Dark Crystal. So,
yeah, we'll have to talk about that. Does that count as animation? What do we talk? We'll talk about it regardless. Right. There's a fair amount of animation in there anyway. So yeah, we'll watch that too.
Well, anyway, folks, that'll do it for now. Thanks for listening, and Drew and I will be back soon.